Now, Dr Anthony Fauci, we know, is as slippery as they come. The bloke is, of course, their version of a chief health officer, right? Their version of Bambi Eyes or the Nutty Professor or Chant or all the rest of it, right? And Rand Paul, Dr Rand Paul, is a bloke who's decided to take him on because money went from the American government against the rules of the American government, but went from Fauci's department to a non-profit and then funded research that happened in the Wuhan lab. So the suggestion is that Fauci broke the rules.
Knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan? All the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator. Anybody who's lying here, Senator, it is you.
Why does this matter? Because you can go to jail for lying to the Congress, including in hearings. Annelise Nielsen joins us now from the United States. Now, this is fascinating because there have been plenty of people who were done for lying to Congress as part of the Russia investigation. Well, presumably, we'll wait and see, but Rand Paul is talking about calling in the same people to look at Fauci.
Look, there is a bit of theatre to it, and I'd have to say he's become such an absolute hero in Australia, in the US, especially for those on the left. It would be pretty shocking even if they managed to lay a charge on him. But what it all comes down to is this definition of the gain of function, as you heard the Senator mention there, about whether that was actually funded by the US government. Now, gain of function is relating to the transmissibility of the virus, and that's where these critics say that this is where the US has funded through this not-for-profit research into that, which has made the virus all that more dangerous. But Fauci there has completely denied it. He says his experts have looked it up and down and there's no way that they contributed to that particular research. So we are going into the weeds, but as you know, all those investigations do tend to get awfully technical, and it doesn't mean that there can't be some pretty explosive results out of it.
Well, it's that thing where, as I say, I mean, literally about misremembering a date, right? It was one of the reasons Roger Stone ended up with matters that he ended up going before court on, right? So it's not, so if they want to apply the law in a certain fashion, it can create real problems. Now, again, I don't know what the truth is, but you have a scenario here where you've got two combatants who definitely believe the other one is not telling the truth, which often means you have to adjudicate whether someone is telling the truth or not, regardless of whether they're a deity or a devil, right?
Oh, absolutely. But this has just become so highly politicised. There's been no way that they could have a proper conversation without either side really coming into bear. And that's what's really become the big issue with this discussion into the origins of the coronavirus, that they can't really have a reasonable discussion because it does end up in just this red-blue kind of argument that you see here.
Yeah, fascinating times ahead. In the meantime, though, in Washington, D.C., right, type of place where thankfully, you know, back to kind of normal, right? But not 100% vaccination. This has been my theme of the past couple of nights here in Australia, which is, hey, we're not going to get to 100%. Are there voices in Washington, D.C. who are saying, hey, we can't afford any cases, any deaths?
No, pretty much right across the board, that's not a discussion in the US. I've just come back from spending time in Iowa and Minnesota. For those who want me to get outside of the Beltway, I can promise you I am. There's just never been that perception in the US. I think very early on, there was a lot of jealousy of Australia that we could do that, but now the discussion's all vaccinations, and it's actually kind of remarkable. I'm starting to hear more Americans actually know of what's happening in Australia, the lockdowns, and say, geez, it's like March 2020 for you guys. And it's like, yep, because we haven't hit those vaccine targets. So
March 20,
all vaccines.
But again, it's this thing, right, that as I've been talking about for a few days, you know, you're at about 50, 60, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on where you are, right? But because you've gone from thousands of deaths a week to dozens, people are like, oh, that's a relief. We're going from 0 deaths to having to get to a live with it.
The age bracket.
Yeah. Sadly, I'm out of time. So
over 65, most places it's over 90%. And so no one's dying. They're not going to die of it. That's the whole point of a vaccine. It doesn't stop you getting the coronavirus. It just stops you being in hospital or dead.
I'm with you. So, Chief Health Officers, pay attention. The lady knows what she's talking about. All right. Appreciate it, mate. We'll talk to you again very soon.